Let's speak to Simon Marks, LBC's US correspondent, with more on the breaking news tonight that both Bill and Hillary Clinton have agreed to testify at the House of Representatives inquiry into Jeffrey Epstein. Simon, very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Potentially a really quite significant development tonight.
A very significant development, Ben, and a staggering climb down, a complete cave-in by the Clintons, who for months have been insisting that they would not testify before the House Oversight Committee, that they didn't even recognise that it had the right to question them about Bill Clinton's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. They went to the mat, risking the possibility of contempt of Congress charges that almost certainly Republicans, joined by some Democrats, would have succeeded in passing. We know that Democrats were preparing to cross the aisle in sufficient numbers to make that contempt charge stick. And then, of course, they could have been sent to jail, as, for example, Steve Bannon, President Trump's political advisor, on-again, off-again political advisor, has been jailed for contempt of Congress. So too has Peter Navarro, President Trump's economic advisor. The Clintons, as recently as January the 13th, in a letter, an open letter to the Republican chair of the House Oversight Committee, said, "Every person has to decide when they have seen or had enough and are ready to fight for this country, its principles and its people, no matter the consequences. For us, now is that time." Those were the words of the Clintons on January the 13th. Tonight here in Washington, it is February the 2nd, and they have waved the white flag, and they have agreed that they will appear to testify about what they know regarding Jeffrey Epstein on a date still to be determined by the House Oversight Committee. That is going to be an extraordinary circus on Capitol Hill, a remarkable moment for a former president of the United States, threatened with contempt charges, to come to Capitol Hill to testify before a committee. For the White House, they will be cock-a-hoop at the White House tonight, that suddenly the Klieg lights of the Epstein files release will be shifting once again to Bill Clinton, even though we've seen nothing in any of the documents that have been released, barring some photographs in which Bill Clinton is seen alongside Epstein and alongside women whose identities are redacted by the Department of Justice. Absolutely nothing to suggest criminal activity by former President Bill Clinton in terms of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. But for the Republicans, this is a massive victory, especially given that Democrats on the committee were preparing to join them in pushing for those contempt of Congress charges against the Clintons.
Simon, I fully appreciate no date's been set yet. Would you expect this to happen quite quickly now? Because obviously there's going to be a huge amount of speculation and anticipation. Or is this something that's going to take months to actually kind of agree the details of, do you think?
I think the Republicans will want to get them up on Capitol Hill as quickly as possible. And I think it's also important to underscore, Ben, that the Democrats are on the defensive over Jeffrey Epstein, because there have been many voices here, perfectly justifiably, saying, given that we've now seen these 3 million documents that were released last Friday, what on earth was going on during the 4 years of the Biden administration? Why was there no apparent effort to put any of the documents in the public domain, or even any interest being evinced in talking about Jeffrey Epstein? It wasn't that long ago that the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, late last year, was continuing to insist that all this discussion about Jeffrey Epstein was just a distraction, and that the country shouldn't allow itself to be dragged into all of this. And then, of course, the Democrats realized that public opinion was shifting, which is why they very eagerly backed the law that President Trump had to sign late last year, requiring all of those documents to be put into the public domain. Now, of course, the Democrats accusing the White House of a cover-up, but the Republicans tonight, the ball was in their court, and they've managed to lob a volley past Bill and Hillary Clinton and force them to head up to Capitol Hill for that testimony.
And the more the sort of other, high-profile, powerful associates of Jeffrey Epstein do agree to sort of speak up and face questioning. So, I mean, where does that leave the likes of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, maybe even Peter Mantle, and those who have already been asked to testify and who quite possibly will be asked to testify in the weeks and months ahead, and so far are either refusing to do so or outright ignoring the requests? It puts a lot more pressure on them, presumably.
Yeah, pressure piles on them as a result of this. I mean, once the British public, let alone the American public, have seen the images of Bill and Hillary Clinton arriving on Capitol Hill, and you know, that's a very public area for them to be walking through. I mean, they may get taken through an entrance at the back, but they'll still ultimately have to walk in and out of the hearing room, and, they will be besieged by the press and by photographers, and possibly also by members of the public who will get a chance, perhaps, depending on the rules of engagement, to attend those hearings. I mean, that just mounts further pressure on people like Lord Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. We know that the committee definitely wants to hear from Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. My presumption is that given everything we've all learnt about Peter Mandelson's contacts with Jeffrey Epstein, the committee will be very keen to hear from him as well. So pressure mounts on them.
I've just finally a slightly different matter to ask you about. Donald Trump's plans to close the Kennedy Center arts venue where you are in Washington, D.C., named, of course, after President John F. Kennedy. What's the latest on that, and why has that kind of caused such a political row in Washington?
Well, we now have some fresh news on that from President Trump. Remember that suddenly, yesterday, he announced that he was going to close the Kennedy Center for 2 years for refurbishment from July the 4th onwards. This after virtually every single artist and performer that has been booked to appear at the Kennedy Center refused to appear after Donald Trump put his name on the building and started calling it the Trump Kennedy Center. There were suggestions that the president was planning to knock it down like he's done to the East Wing of the White House. Tonight, he has told reporters that he won't be tearing the building down. He said, "I'm not ripping it down. I'll be using the steel." So we're using the structure, we're using some of the marble, but when it's open, it'll be brand new and really beautiful. Oh. So it sounds like he's planning to take it all the way back to the raw steel and then basically rebuild it.
The Kennedy Center is going to become the Trump Center, Simon, isn't it? That's the way this is headed.
Exactly. I mean, that will be the ultimate suspicion, won't it? That suddenly it will be a different building entirely and he'll just call it the Trump Center and kiss goodbye to the Kennedy name altogether.
You couldn't make it up at this point. Simon, thank you very much indeed. Great to have you on the programme. Simon Marks, LBC's brilliant US correspondent.